Cabin in the Woods. Okay, so The Cabin in the Woods is the directional debut by former Cloverfield writer Drew Goddard, and it's been co-written with Josh Whedon, who's got a film that's coming up pretty soon, which, you know, I think may slip under the radar. Anyway, it's been sitting around for the last 3 years, and now it's coming out, and you can view it. I viewed it, and now I can give you my opinion to see if you want to view it, and then you can take that on board or not. Okay, so the premise of the film is, and I don't want to say too much because that would ruin the whole part of the movie, but it's about 5 fairly average teenagers who go to a cabin in the woods, incidentally, and some strange shit goes down, and it starts to play out like a normal horror movie. You know, the normal conventions that we've all grown to love and hate over the last few years, like, you know, how they all split up. There's the unnecessary sex scene, there's unnecessary violence, etc, etc. And anyway, yeah, all this starts happening, but there's something going on along the sidelines which I don't want to tell you, right? It's really better if you don't look at any trailers or read anything about it, or, you know, just be a bit careful of reviews as well, because I know that some have been giving away too many spoilers, and it's really best that you go in knowing nothing at all, because it'll just make the film so much better if you know nothing. I'll start off and say, is the film good? Hell yes! This film is probably my film of the year so far, and I've seen pretty much everything. It's a film that basically turns all the horror conventions that we've grown to know over the years from all these horror films that Hollywood keeps streaming out, and they're just becoming so dull and repetitive that we're just like, oh, no more! So yeah, it turns all that on its head, and, you know, it takes the conventions, basically throws them everywhere, spits on them, stands on them, juggles them, throws them at a leper colony or something. That's it, yeah, twists it on its head. Now, I'd love to tell you all about, like, what different conventions they change and stuff, but I won't, because it's when they happen, you'll recognise it and you'll know, and you'll go, ah. And what the film does with these conventions, it doesn't just, you know, take the mick out of them and exploit them in ways. It uses them as a plot device to actually push the plot forward and keep everything going and steady. And within the context of the film, that they all fit in really well. Maybe there's maybe one or two that don't particularly. They feel a bit forced, but for the most part, they're all pretty much nailed for the plot, what they want to do. And in horror films as they come, we always get these, you know, traditional teenage ones. Like there's the one that dresses inappropriately. You know, we've got the sensitive male, we've got the timid, you know, strong female presence at the front, and we've got, you know, the jock, etc, etc. And what the plot does, these characters, they don't actually completely start out like that, but the plot and the story of the film, it actually forces them to fit into these caricatures, which I thought was a really cool way of bringing that forward, instead of just having these preset characters that we don't care about, that you actually learn to care about them because they're being forced into these, you know, helpless positions that we always see in horror movies now. But it never overplays it, such as films like Scary Movie. It's more down the lines of you may have heard of it, a smaller film, which is actually called Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. It stays at a level that, you know, it goes into tongue-in-cheek humour at times, but then it can move over into being completely serious, and it may not balance that evenly. I mean, it's never really, you never really feel too threatened within the film, or, you know, it's never too scary, but I think the main purpose of the film is to entertain you, and by hell, it entertains the shit out of you. And I do have a couple of nagging issues, like there was a few little plot holes there and there, but with films like this you have to go in with a level of disbelief. As for the plot to, you know, appeal to, you can't go in believing that it's going to be it's going to play it straight with a film like this, because if you know anything about it, it's more of a horror comedy than a straight up horror. And there's also the last act, while it's probably, you know, the final don't get me wrong, the final 30 minutes of this film, you're not prepared. I could even tell you what happened. I won't. I could tell you what happened and you wouldn't even be prepared. It's like that scene in Aeroplane when he says shit's gonna hit the fan, and it's like a realistic version of that, and it's just the last act. It could, if you don't buy into the premise of the film, it could seem quite ridiculous, and that could be a point where half the audience goes, ugh, and half the audience is there like me going, fuck yeah! But overall I thought the Cabin, it addressed it, you know, how horror films have become quite recently, and how they've become like this slow, repetitive strain of just, oh God, no! But no, I had a really good time with it, and it brings something fresh and original instead of all adapted screenplays or finally, you know, just more remakes, not naming any horror movie remakes that are really bad. I know it's not a particularly deep film, or, you know, it doesn't, not, you know, a character piece or anything, but as entertainment, you know, it's probably one of the most entertaining films I've seen this year. Well, in fact, it is the most entertaining film I've seen this year, and I'm going to give The Cabin 4.5 stars. So this was my first review. It's a bit choppy on the rocks. That's not even a term I think even British people use, so don't, if you're over the seas, think that we all say that, because we don't. But no, if you liked it, I'd love you to subscribe, and I'll keep bringing more and more reviews, film reviews every week, because I'll be at press screenings, and I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to subscribe, just click right here to subscribe. I realise I may have not left enough time for you to click subscribe when I did that, so I'm just going to hold this pose for even longer. I think I had my fingers around about here. We'll do it anyway, and I'll do this face. Oh God! Subscribe! Okay, I'm gonna stop.
I think I can get it to go down.